good morning and welcome back to part 2 today of Priscilla Newton's testimony and story. If you were with us last week, you heard a lot of some powerful things that happened in her life. Some that was really challenging and trying and scary and life-threatening moments. But in the midst of it, you also heard a lot of laughter because this woman has such a peace. I've just sat and watched her, and I'm telling on myself, and I don't want to make her uncomfortable, but I've watched her, and she just shines for Jesus. And you know, we talked about having someone came up in the restaurant and spoke to her because she's such an inspiration. But it's just because she shines for Jesus, and people can see that. You know, we are the light of the world, and when that light shines, you're not going to hide it under a bushel. It's going to shine brighter than the bushel can cover it up. And I wouldn't imagine her wanting to put out that light in her life for anything. And she was sharing the story with how she grew ill one evening, and it wasn't just from a bad meal, but it was a terrible life-threatening sickness that came upon her body. And I'm going to let her pronounce all of this because I will surely not do it justice. But it's just taken me back, just looking at her life and just seeing at what all God has done in her life, and just seeing that her disability has become God's ability in her life, and that she gives the Lord the glory that what He has left her with was just exactly what she needed, because she still has a voice, and she can still share that story and share the love of Jesus with others. You know, whether it's through a mission trip to Belize, or whether it's being active in her local church, or whether it's ministering in the prison to women that have been incarcerated, or whether it's working and ministering to other amputees. She's allowing God to define these moments in her life for good. And as we were sitting here talking, she was telling me not only has she gone through this horrible illness where it cost her her legs and her fingers and multiple scars on her body, but also been through a car accident. I don't think it involved a train, though. We were talking about trains earlier. I don't think it involved a train. And then also about the death of her husband. And I want to invite Priscilla back to the mic today. And let's just begin again today, Priscilla, with what happened and how, just kind of do a little summary of how the sickness came upon you and what it turned out to be.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Meningococcal sepsis. You never meet a bacteria quite like it. But the Lord has blessed me, like I said. It was January 2011 when I had gotten sick and was introduced to this disease. Of course, it was toward the end of the month before I realized I would have to have an amputation. And we've just gone forward ever since. I had mentioned there were 3 goals that I wanted to accomplish in my first year. One was to get back to church. Second, in the ladies' work release. And third, square dance again.
Say that third one more time in case somebody missed that. Out of all you've been through, your third goal was to
square dance again.
Square dance again. Amen. I love that.
And I am so blessed to be able to, and it's a joy to me.
And it has got to be a joy to anyone who gets to square dance with you.
Well, I have a little dangle. That's what we call these little things that you attach to your badge, or some people call them bling. But I have a little leg, and it says, if they're brave enough to dance with me, I give it to them, and it says, "You've just danced with the world's legless wonder."
Yes, and I am a proud owner of some new bling.
Yes, and all through the Southeast, I have people that have this little bling, and they wear it proudly. And it's just one of the little things that I do to keep life fun and fascinating. But I was wanting to tell you what had happened since, let's see, I had got to, where I was going to an amputee convention, my first convention. My girlfriend, Vivian, she was a one-leg amputee, left leg below the knee amputee. And she came to me. She was a peer visitor. She told me about the Amputee Coalition and everything, where you could go to the website. People would help you with all kinds of material, resources, help you get any kind of spare parts you needed. In my case, it was legs and feet. But they also do hands and fingers, whatever you need to be fixed back up with. But they had a program called the Bridge Program, and they wanted you to tell them about what happened to you and why you became an amputee. And so I filled out the forms, and believe it or not, they took me as a student. And so they flew me out there. We went on a plane, and that was an experience if you've ever been searched in a wheelchair. But you do have the right to request a private room. But, they want to make sure you don't have any firearms or dope in your leg or, any of that kind of stuff. And so I passed that okay with flying colors and made sure I didn't have any guns or anything stuck in my wheelchair. But it was such an eye-opener for me. I had never been around a lot of people that were amputees. I had been around people that were deaf or blind, but, not amputees. And I tell you, it opened the world up to me. It's nothing like seeing 800 plus amputees in one setting. But all the companies come, and they have a big room, and all the latest things are there. Technology, legs, knees, arms, hands, elbows, everything. And so they're more than willing to show you how anything works, because, of course, they want you to go home and tell your man, hey, I need that. But just remember, your insurance will only allow so much.
Only the necessary parts.
Only the necessary parts. But I have been very blessed with my doctors, prosthesis people. That's a terrible word to have to say.
Almost as bad as the disease.
Almost as bad as the disease. But they have been wonderful. I didn't realize when you started out as an amputee, they had a scale. And you had to reach a certain level before you could move up to another part. My first leg was called the pin system. The ankle did not move, it was fixed. And I had a pin toward the bottom of the leg that you could push, and it would release the liner, which had a pin in it that was about 3.5 to 4 inches long. It went down into your socket. And after you put it on, you listen for 3 clicks, and you're good to go. If you wait for less than that, your leg could fall off.
That would not be good.
No. It sure isn't. I'll tell you, when I first started going to church, of course, I was in a wheelchair. And when I graduated to a walker, I was able to walk in, but, getting used to something so different on your legs that you're not used to, and carrying weight where you're not supposed to, are 2 different things. And so by the time I got from the car, up the elevator, down the hall, to the pew, I was exhausted. And so I would take my legs off to release the pressure and sit there at church, between the pews. And that was wonderful. I mean, it just felt so good. Well, my sister, being the conniving person she is, she thought my legs looked so good standing there that they needed some trash in them. So, of course, she did that. You can't help a sister. You got to love her. But another time I was there, and the space between the pew and the seat is not very much. And people that have extra pieces, it's kind of difficult to manage in that short space. And so, anyway, I was trying to cross my legs, for another comfortable position, and I hit that button, my fast release button, and my leg fell off. Well, I was so glad I was sitting down. But it happens with amputees, we can't help ourselves. But anyway, after, getting set with the pin system, I had moved up to another foot that gave me 45 degrees of flexion where I could move my ankle. Mm-hmm. And that was wonderful after 2 years of having a fixed ankle.
Oh, imagine.
And so I had a lot of fun with that leg. And today I'm in what they call elevated suction. And I am on a blade like Oscar Pistorius had in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. However, this is a walking blade. It has a little foot attached to it, like a sole. And people think that if you're in a blade, you're automatically a runner. Well, that's not necessarily true. I'm a walker,
really cool, and
they are very cool. They're green and black, very chic. And I've got a cross on them. On both of them, there's a cross and there's angel wings on the sides. And I didn't realize that until after I was looking at them for a while. And I thought, that's not bad. That goes with my leg cover that I had. The first time I had a piece of material, it says a song of joy and of peace, and it has different little sayings and song notes on it and lines. Well, I like that, but I wanted something a little bit more personalized. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to my girlfriend. She has a trophy and T-shirt shop, and she said, yeah, we'll work on it. And so I told her what I wanted. I told her that 1 Corinthians 13:13, love, peace, and hope, mm-hmm. was my byword. I wanted crosses on it, and I wanted angels. And so she was able to put that together for me. Mm-hmm. And I have tweaked the design a little bit, but that's still my basic thing.
Wow.
And I guess that'll be my basic cover until the Lord calls me home.
Well, they have done a beautiful job, and we will have pictures on Facebook at Defining Moments Ministries Inc. page where you can hear this testimony in its entirety and see some before, during, and after pictures. We just want you to be warned because some of the during pictures are pretty intense, but it's an incredible story of survival, of God bringing triumph out of tragedy.
That's the truth. Well, that's what the Lord is all about. Mm-hmm. Triumph.
Absolutely. Sometimes we get caught in the midst of our storm and we feel like that our ship's going to go down, and we forget that Jesus is in the ship with us, that he's right there, and sometimes it feels like he's asleep. But when he gets up and he speaks to those storms, what he says is what you have, and that is peace.
That's
peace,
the truth.
Be still.
That is so true. Since I had wakened after coming out of my coma, and the Lord was so gracious to me to let me know he was there and he loved me and cared for me and everything was going to be all right, I just had to go forward.
Tell me, how long were you in a coma?
I believe it was maybe a week to 10 days or so.
I guess it's kind of vague and all that happening. I didn't know if somebody had documented it. And we were sharing about last week about how that your temperature went up to 107.1.
I was a hot mama for sure.
Y'all, I love this woman. We are going to definitely have to have her come and do a ladies' luncheon for us. And I know everybody listening to this program wants to come and be a part of that and meet this incredible woman of God. And, you know, she didn't come by herself. She brought a guest with her who's going to come back and be our guest. So let me just acknowledge Gloria. Gloria's in the studio with us today, and Gloria has a powerful testimony, and we're going to get her to come back down so we can get these ladies roped into driving back down to Greenville, Alabama, and let her give her story and her testimony of how God transformed her life. You know, it's like I tell the ladies when I go into prison, the system sent you here to reform you, but God sent you here to transform you. And He is in the transforming business. And let's just go back to Priscilla. But we did want to acknowledge you, Gloria, for being here today. And thank you for coming with Priscilla. I know she would have just been bored stiff riding that far by herself. I have a feeling she could probably entertain herself very well. But one of the things that happened is you were in an automobile accident.
Yes, just about a year to the date after I had my first amputation. We, my husband and I, we were driving back from square dancing, New Year's again. My leg was kind of hurting because I'd been up on it a lot. And being an amputee, you find out what your limits are, and you better quit or you really pay for it. So we had gotten in his truck, and we were driving back home on Carson Road. And Highway 31, which is in Fultondale, passes Carson and 31 bisect. Whatever. Anyway, we were stopping at the red light, and we had stopped. And all of a sudden, somebody, I don't know where he come from, he come out of the blue, hit the back of our truck, pushed us under the red light, out into the intersection. The Lord was gracious. No cars were coming.
Thank God.
In the turn lane, there was a policeman. This guy bounces off our bumper, heads down south. I don't think he got maybe a block. He had done so much damage, his car just quit. Anyhow, they wouldn't let us out of the car or the truck because, you know, when you're waiting on the paramedics and everything. My husband had a bad case of whiplash. He really knocked the devil out of his head. But other than that, he felt pretty good. And, of course, he wanted to get out, and they wouldn't let him. And so I just stayed in there, and paramedics came. And, you know, the first thing they do is they'll ask you if you're doing okay and all that. Then they'll open your door, and they'll put their hand down on your pulse, on your ankle. He says, "Can you feel that?" I said, "No." So he raises his hand on up my leg a little bit, you know, about to my calf. He says, "Can you feel that?" I said, "No." And I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to let him off the hook. And I said, I couldn't have felt it before the wreck either. He got up, closed the door. He didn't want me to hear this, but I did. He turned around to his fellow person. He says, "Smart aleck amputee in there." But I just couldn't help it. Lord help me. But there's been a lot of fun times, you know, and you have to make the most of what you do and the experiences you go through. And I was going to also mention, before I got out of the hospital, I was in my room, you know, just kind of waiting between therapies and things, and Brother John Gallagher came to my room, and he was watching me. And I looked up, and he looks at me, and he says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I am, John, but how tall am I?" I have no idea how tall I am anymore. Well, he just rolled, and he says, "I knew she was going to be okay after that."
I know on last week's program when you mentioned when you stood, you felt shorter. I thought of all she's been through, and she's concerned about being shorter. Well, maybe they can jack you up a little bit.
Well, they can. They can put me any height I want to
Oh,
be.
my goodness. Well, you know, I am barely 5 foot tall, and I think sometimes I need to be a little taller, but they can't make me as tall as I need to be. That's an advantage.
Well, don't do the
there.
amputee
I
thing.
think I'll skip that.
But I'm back at my normal height, which is 6.5 to 7 inches high.
That is amazing.
And yes, I kept my same size foot, a size 10, and proud of it.
Wow. You got me whipped there, too.
Well, I've always had a good understanding.
No, well, there you go.
But I was wanting to tell you, after the wreck, they put us in an ambulance. First time I'd ever been in an ambulance. And they had my husband strapped down, and he was having some trouble breathing. And so they were giving him oxygen, and I was over there strapped down just, listening to him. And they were talking, I think he's losing his mind. He's having trouble. And they just didn't realize he was just that kind of guy. He was just corny, But anyway, we got to spend New Year's together that weekend at the hospital.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, of course, they always want to make as little money as possible from a wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And so, see, I had been up doing well since September when I got my leg. And I had been up on my leg, forever and doing things and everything, driving, dancing. And this put me back in a wheelchair for about 3 months.
Oh.
Because after the wreck, I thought, I'm so glad that I had my legs on so I didn't get any problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't realize that I had gotten a problem because 3 days afterwards, I couldn't get my prosthetic legs on.
Mm.
And I had to go back in a wheelchair.
Oh, man.
And I tell you, that was so aggravating.
I'm sure that was kind of a downer there. But
Yes, but I got in touch with my roots. You got to learn to crawl before you can walk. Okay, back page 1.
Oh. Well, my prayer is that out of everybody that's listening today, I pray that there's somebody listening that has allowed something in their life to stop them, to discourage them, to keep them from reaching their destiny and their greatest potential that God has for them. I remember at lunch telling y'all what a friend of mine says, and what she always has said is that the devil has a plot, but God has a plan.
That's the truth.
And what the enemy intends for evil, God can turn it around and bring something very good and very beautiful out of it. It used to be a song that says, He made something beautiful out of my life. And, from a spiritual standpoint, He did that for me. I know He's done that for both of you ladies, because Jesus just shines out of you, and it's obvious that you're doing the work of the kingdom, and to just see what all you've been through and how you've come full circle. And I know God's not finished with us. There's so much more God's got to do with us. He probably laughs at us sometimes and goes, if you just knew how much more I needed to do in you. But one of the things that Gloria shared a few moments ago during our break was that not long ago your husband went to be with Jesus. And that one of the things you posted to Facebook was, I'm sitting here holding my husband's hand as he goes to meet Jesus. That is such a beautiful assurance.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has that assurance.
I know it, and I certainly pray that everybody thinks about it, because eternity is forever, and so is hell.
You know, the scripture talks about it's better to enter into life maimed or lose a body part, but yet enter into the kingdom of heaven and be whole and be saved for eternity. And that is the greatest desire of us today. And we've had such a wonderful past 2 programs with Priscilla, and just looking so forward to having her come back and just minister our ladies and just share. I think she could be a stand-up comic out of everything she's been through. Just sharing that about the paramedics. Now that was good. I'm gonna have to share that with some of my friends that haven't already heard it on the program. But to keep your sense of humor and to know that it's a God-given gift for you to have that out of everything you've walked through, and just to know you survived all of that sickness, all that fever. And I'm looking over in your sister's notes and reading where you finally, for the first time, got to have a little chipped ice with water in it. I imagine that felt really good.
Oh, that was wonderful.
I know, coming out of some of the surgeries I've had, when you get that, oh, it's just so refreshing. And then I see down here where she has written on Friday, January the 21st, she writes with exclamation points, God is good. And it says, Priscilla appears to be getting a little better each day. Thanks be unto the Lord. Let me just encourage you. Priscilla, do you have anything you want to say before I say any more? Do you have any closing words? We have just maybe a minute.
Always listen to the Lord. He's always talking to us.
Amen. He is. He can talk to us through His Word. He can talk to us through the things He shows us in nature. He can talk to us through those little screaming children sometimes too, to let us know that if He can put up with us, we can put up with them. Amen.
That's
Amen.
true.
He definitely is speaking. So thank you again, Priscilla, for coming. Gloria, thank you for coming with her. We look forward to having you come back and share your defining moments with us too. And out of everything you've heard us say here today, we just want to encourage you to try Jesus, to consider your soul, to think about those eternal moments, and don't let this life pass you by without accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And when you do that, my friend, then you will certainly experience your greatest defining moment.